Hello, my name is Jerry Villarreal, and today I'm here to talk to you about safety and health training permit required for confined spaces. But before we start, I wanted to I printed out some handouts for you. Problem is, OSHA and the regulations, there's a lot that goes into this. So I can't give you all the information all in one day. So I made some handouts for you guys to look through. If y'all want to look through later on, it has MSDS sheets, and it has more information about confined spaces and what OSHA requires for to enter a confined space. And I want to start out by showing you a few things that is needed to enter a confined space. One, some of the time they require for you to have hard hats. There is special uniforms that you wear to enter the confined space. I use these as just prop, just to show you. These are not the required uniform. This is just an example of what it is. They also have monitors that they require you to wear. First thing I wanted to do is kind of define what is a confined space. I printed a sheet out for you so you can see it, or you can follow through. But a confined space has to have means of entry. That means there has to be a way, and more than one way, for you to go into the confined space. Two, it has to be large enough for a person to fit in there and to actually perform the work in a confined space. Meaning, you really can't be in a space where you're kind of claustrophobic and it's too small for you to do anything in there. Three is it's not designed, a confined space is not designed for you to live there. Meaning, you can't be there for several hours throughout the day. That's not what a confined space is. Again, most of the companies where you're going to work and where they're going to have confined spaces, anyone that goes into a confined space needs to have the proper training to go into them. Also, they need to be proper documentation. That's where we get into the where the companies have to do the writing programs, entry permits, also controlling the hazards, equipment safety, worker training, and MSDS worksheets. The first thing that I kind of wanted to emphasize with you guys is when they're doing the identifying the needs for a confined space. It's not just giving you the right equipment to go into the confined space, but it's also writing the proper procedures for that confined space. A lot of times, we get workers out here that come in and are going to do a job, but before they can do that job, we have to send in a technician or safety person to go in there and check the confined space for any hazardous, whether it be a gas leak, any leaks of any kind. There may be debris, something in the confined space that's not allowing them to work in that space. And so a lot goes into going into the confined space besides just sending somebody in for a permit. Like I said, the writing programs, that is something that has to be done by the company, and usually is done by policy. OSHA has a lot of regulations when it comes to stuff like this, so it's not easy for the company to write the policies, but they usually have someone who actually is a professional or doing and works in that area writing policy for them. The entry permits, an entry permit also, that comes usually from the supervisors. When you enter a confined space, you may find a sign that says something about this confined space has been approved or certified as an entry by the supervisor, usually has his name, something to that effect. Also controlling hazards. Going back to that, that's where we talk about where the company actually has to look at the confined space and determine where are the hazards. If there is a gas leak and something explodes or something, is there a way for the person or the entrant that's in there, a way to get out? What happens if he does come out and he's burned? There has to be procedures for that. What comes next? Who's there? Who's going to take care of that person? Another thing is the equipment. They have to give you the proper equipment to enter a confined space. Again, it could be anywhere from an H2S monitor, a hard hat, the proper clothing, fire retardant clothing. You got lanyards. Lanyards are the ones because usually where I have worked before, we had what we used to call a three-man crew. You had one guy outside the space with, especially if it was in where you had to actually go down into a hole. You had the guy working in the hole. Then we had the guy actually holding the lanyard, which was holding that person. Then we had the third person watching that person. So each individual has a job to do as far as, so it's not just as simple as sending down somebody to work into a confined space. And that's part of the goal. Like I said, as far as the company's goal is one, protection. Always protecting the person who is either doing the work into a confined space or even the person who is actually going in to inspect that confined space to make sure that it's okay for somebody to enter. That's one of, like I said, that's one of the main goals for that. How do they do that? Proper training. They got to get the persons both entering and the person actually going into the confined space, giving the permit, which would be the supervisor. He also has to be properly trained before he can enter into a confined space. And the objectives, again, going back, the objective is finding the proper procedures, policies, equipment, training, any material possible that could help to protect against accidents, because that is why we are talking about permits required and permits needed to go into a confined space, because we're talking about accidents and safety, and that's one of the main deals going into the confined space areas. Again, controlling the hazards. Again, that goes back into, and most of this stuff that we're talking about, like I said, OSHA has a lot of regulations, but a lot of it has to do with the hazards and the protection of the people. Getting to, like I said, there is a lot of material out there right now. You can go online. You can pretty much get it through the mail. You can call OSHA directly. They got 800 numbers for OSHA that can give you just about any type of material, any type of anything you might need as far as safety, what is required to go into a confined space, what training do you need, what education do you need. Again, I was just trying to give you guys an overview of what a confined space is and what is required to go into a confined space. I know this was very quick, and I apologize for not having the overhead. It didn't work out for me today. We tried, and the computers just wouldn't work, so I had to improvise. I do apologize for that. And once again, if you have any questions, feel free to call me. I have my name on the printed material. Thank you, and have a nice day.